Hi team, Melissa from Melissa vs. Fibromyalgia here. We have got to talk about nutrition in fibromyalgia because it is confusing. There is a minefield out there. I have been looking into this for a long time because it's part of those lifestyle things, right? Things that we can do to help ourselves includes healthy eating. But what is healthy eating? You Google it and it's so confusing. You've got evangelicals from like this side to this side, right? You've got the extreme plant-based people who say that really helped them, and you've got the extreme meat-based people who say that helps them, and then everything in between. And it's quite confusing. And each camp has their own research, but I think it's individualized, and I think that's the special thing here to take away from it is it's individualized. As much as fibromyalgia and chronic pain and fatigue impacts us in different ways, and the things that help us is different, again, food is different. And for a long time, I have been saying the only things that are really important that I have found myself is avoid the junk and avoid things that are not real food. Things that are just made up and our great-grandparents wouldn't have any idea what they are, and your personal intolerances. And it can be quite tricky to find your personal intolerances, but I think that's really important, and I think it is really worth experimenting in this area. I don't think it's worth going on a really restrictive diet without extreme support, especially when you are quite unwell. But I do think it is worth experimenting because little things like I was lactose free for a good long time, and that made my tummy feel better, but I think that dairy still causes inflammation, and I don't think dairy is necessary. I don't think that we need it. I think we can get the vitamins and nutrients that it offers from other places, and I also don't actually think it has many useful things on its own. I think it's highly processed. But when I had to cut out the dairy fully when I was nursing my fourth baby, it actually really made a difference. And a few weeks ago, I started trying to add in a little bit of lactose-free dairy again, and my joints and my fingers were getting really inflamed and sore. So I cut that out again. About a month ago, I had a Coke Zero. In the next 2 days, my joints were so sore. I couldn't even imagine how bad it could be. And then after a few days, it calmed down again. So I think our own physiology, biology, whatever you want to call it, is a really important factor here. I've looked across a lot of them, and I wanted to kind of give a breakdown, especially as it refers to autoimmunity or fibromyalgia or just people with chronic illness. One is real food. Eat real food. That's what they pretty much all agree on. The healthy plant-based, the healthy keto-ish, the healthy paleos, they all are focusing on real food. So with that in mind, I thought I would very briefly talk about the main ones that are available for us as resources. So the first one that deserves a mention is the Fibro food formula from Dr. Ginevra Lipton. She is the author of the Fibro Manual. She is wonderful. If you haven't read her book, read her book. Every interview I've ever seen with her leaves me with such hope. She is a doctor with fibromyalgia herself, and I love her so much. And so the thing about the Fibro food formula is that I think it's paleo-ish, and it's very simple, and it has the concept of red foods and green foods and the yellow foods. So it gives you a sense of what to really avoid and what to really prioritize, which I think is really useful, especially if we're quite unwell. So that is a good starting point. I'll leave the link below so that you can check out the book and purchase it if you want it. The next one to talk about is Dr. Sarah Ballantyne. Now she created Paleo Mom, and so she has Paleo Principles book, which is her whole paleo thing. So she's very evidence-based. She's a medical researcher. It really resonates with me, and I love it. And she made the Autoimmune Paleo Protocol. She has a book on that as well. And her most recent thing is Nutrivore. And this really gets me. I love it. So essentially, because I've looked into it, I've got the Guide to Nutrivore book, and I've got the matrix. So she has a meal matrix where each week you just tick off the food groups that are the most nutrient dense. And so the idea is you eat for nutrient density, and you avoid kind of major awful things that are not great for you, but the matrix is all about prioritizing what's good for you. And it's about her kind of taking a step away from paleo dogma into what's healthy. So for example, paleo usually excludes legumes, but she's found that legumes are really nutritionally valuable. So if you personally can tolerate legumes, they are great to have in your diet. And so again, that's that personalization. So the thing about the autoimmune paleo protocol is that it is quite restrictive and very nutrient dense. But the point is that you try it and then you add things back in and see how it goes. So you end up with kind of your own paleo template, which other people have written about as well. But I'm keeping this to do with fibro, chronic illness, autoimmunity. So I really like that, and actually I'm a really big fan of Nutrivore, and I've got some things coming on that, but you can get her books below, so I'll put that those details there as well. So that is a really great place to start, where you're looking at nutrient density and what you're adding, and it's more like a goal and a guide, which I think is wonderful for people like us, especially if you haven't got a lot of energy. It is really wonderful as a place to start. Now, talking about kind of more specific for us, the Wahls Protocol. Now, I love Dr. Wahls. She was in a wheelchair with MS and basically put together a protocol, again, using the idea of nutrient density and eating, good food for your health and your mitochondria. She put together a protocol. It has 3 levels, and she has got herself to the point where she is a fully functioning working doctor if she manages her self-care, and she has put it into practice with her patients that she sees kind of in clinic, but she also has research studies on it, and I've read the Wahls Protocol over and over, and it is one I actually need to own because it's one I'll probably be highlighting and referring back to for a long time. And so level 1 is essentially add lots of vegetables and remove kind of the worst offenders. So remove dairy, gluten, and eggs. She finds that people with autoimmunity often respond negatively to eggs, and she does recommend that you don't really eat them, but says that you can kind of add them back in later and see if it works for you, but you definitely have to give it a trial. I personally can't tolerate egg whites, but I am playing with adding egg yolks back in, and it seemed to go very well. But again, what goes well in my tummy seems to be a little bit different than what happens with my infection, so my fingers will be able to tell me eventually if that's good or not. So the level 1 is like a nice gentle start, getting rid of most of the processed food and starting to really amp up those vegetables and those nutrients. The second part is kind of more paleo-ish, and you are looking at adding certain things like more organ meats for nutrient density and that kind of thing. And the third level seems like it's keto-ish, so like a quite healthy keto with a good amount of vegetables, and a bit more of the healthy fats. And it is a meal plan or guide or protocol that you can do long term. Like, it's not super restrictive. She's really like lots of ideas of how to enact it, and the important thing is bringing the family along. And what is really wonderful, she always talks about how to make it practical. So for example, it's not ideal to use gluten-free products because she says that a lot of these gluten-free products around aren't actually fully gluten-free, especially when you're in a restaurant and stuff. But she's saying, use those convenience foods to start, especially to bring the family along. And so she kind of acknowledges where you are, do your best, but she also does, say when you get into it properly, you do see big gains in your health. And so I think that's one that's really important. Now, personally, I have kind of cobbled all of these things together, and of course I've learned a lot about the Mediterranean diet. It's what a dietitian I saw talked about. I've researched it a lot, but I spent a long time not eating a lot of meat. I didn't enjoy it. I had kind of, issues worried about cruelty to animals and worried about the environment and stuff like that. But in the last few months, I have worked on adding more meat to my diet, more meat, more seafood, and more organ meat. And it's actually making a difference for me. It's actually helping. For the first time in a very, very long time, I have got my iron levels back from nearly at the bottom to just over normal, and that was with one medicine that helps reduce the bleeding during periods, and eating a load more meat, including the liver and sometimes kidney. So I think for me, definitely that's got a part of my diet. So at the moment, I kind of am having kind of half vegetables, half meat for my meals, not breakfast. I can't do meat in the morning, so breakfast I'm having homemade gluten-free, dairy-free bread. Mostly I started eating that because my son is gluten-free. He doesn't actually like it, but I really do. So I eat that first thing in the morning because no one feels great first thing in the morning. Well, no one, I don't. And then yeah, lunch and dinner is kind of, it's half and half at the moment, but I'm super open for it to change, and I'm really working on, so I'm using the Nutrivore matrix from Sarah Ballantyne and working my way through making sure I'm ticking and getting that nutrient density in the week. And by doing that, I'm really eating about as much vegetable as Dr. Wahls recommends. And by having the liver and stuff like that, I'm really hitting kind of level 2 of the Wahls Paleo protocol as well. So I'm sure there'll come a day where I need to commit to something, but I'm really open to seeing how it goes. And maybe there'll come a point where I feel like, oh, okay, I'm topped up and something will change. But yeah, that's where I'm at. But I thought I'd just give you this little brief summary so that you can do more research. So like I said, I'll leave the links to the books below. I think it's really wonderful to read the books, you know, read what they say, interviews with the authors, read their blogs, read the research in the case of Dr. Terry Wahls and Sarah Ballantyne, links to a lot of research in her work, and see what resonates, and then just start dabbling with how you're eating, because I don't think you can go wrong by adding healthy foods. Of course, talk to your doctor. Of course, talk to your doctor. If you can afford help from the form of a dietitian or something, get help. But a lot of them have their own kind of ideas around dietary dogma, and if they haven't had any extra training in nutrition, then they might just think that the traditional food pyramid is the way to go, and then stock up on the carbs. And for me, I just see carbs as an opportunity cost now, unless they're in vegetable form, right? Because those, you could be filled up by brown rice, but you could get a lot more nutrients from sweet potato, for example. But take these information as a starting point and just add some healthy food in and see how you feel. And then take those baby steps and keep checking in with yourself. But I hope that helps you kind of cut through, because I know that there's a lot of very evangelical people out there about their things. But I think for us, when we're not well, it is really good to go slow, go gentle, and take advice. So let us know if you've had any big improvements from your way of eating, or what you're at the moment kind of dabbling with, or what you're researching further, which one of these maybe is your favorite book. And I'll catch you guys again soon.